Welcome. This week we're getting ready to go over lessons 81 to 84. So before we get going, I was sent an article by Kathleen Cotter Lawler, who happens to be Dr. Cotter's daughter, and it was about some phrases that people say, that we say, I'm just as guilty, that can be really demotivating to our students, to our children. So I'd like to share these. There's 3 of them. I'm not going to do all 3 today. I'm going to do one, and the next lesson overview, I'll do the next one, just because I like to keep the videos fairly short because I know you guys have busy schedules. But this is such great information, and I hope it encourages you. It encourages me. I wish I would have known this a lot earlier. But you know what? We learn when we learn, right? We do our best with what we know. So the first thing, and I hope you don't mind, I'm probably going to read it from the paper so I get this correct. Just so you know, this article is by Rachel Furman, and it's Fuhrman, and she is a math teacher. So the first phrase is, "This is so easy." Think about it. Some of you can relate. Maybe you don't feel that you are a math person. You don't feel real confident in your math. Well, you know what? A lot of children think this way. So imagine if you're going to do a lesson and your teacher says, "Oh, this is so easy," and you're struggling with it. Yeah, we need to be careful with the words we use, because what can seem to be easy to us isn't always easy for our children. And so you want to create a place where your children feel safe to struggle, that it's normal to struggle. Even great mathematicians will struggle. They work hard, they persevere, and that's what we want our children to do. We want to teach them sometimes you have to work harder. We should always be working hard. But sometimes some of us might need to work a little harder. That's okay. If it doesn't come easy, that's okay. We can learn this. So make sure you're creating an environment, a place where your children know that it's okay if they don't understand it. It's okay if they struggle with understanding it. Encourage them that perseverance and working on it will pay off. I like to end this little mini teaching reading straight from the article. She says, "We have a responsibility to create spaces that allow students to make mistakes. Allow them to question everything and to learn to fall in love with discovering the solutions to problems." I know I've said this before. Struggle is good. Meltdowns, not good. Pay attention to your children. Allow them to struggle. Don't come in and say anything about something being easy because it may not be easy. And it's okay if it's not. So before we get going, let's see what materials are needed for this week. You're going to need the abacus, your place value cards. You're going to need 5 sheets of paper cut in half, 2 crayons, one with a lighter color, one with a darker color. Your child can pick whichever colors they want. A stapler, the math card game book, the math balance, the worksheets, and your dry erase board. And sorry, I don't have it pictured, but you could use the part whole circle set in place of the dry erase board. Lesson 81, regular names for teens. Yes, we're finally getting to that place in this level where we're going to switch from calling it the math way to going back and calling it with the regular names. However, before we make that quick jump, we want children to understand what 14 or 15 really means. So they're going to learn how teen means 10. We say our numbers from 11 to 19 backwards. And actually, in many, you'll see in the notes, many Indo-European languages, that's really common to say those numbers backwards. Now, today we're not going to focus on 11 and 12. That's got its own little lesson, the following lesson. Today, we're only focusing on the numbers 13 through 19. And I like the way Right Start does this. You're going to play a game, kind of the backward game. You're going to say words backwards, like mailbox. You're going to say box mail. So when we get to 14, they're going to see it first as teen 4 because teen means 10. So they're going to enter it into the abacus just like they would 110-4. We're going to say teen 4, but then we're going to call it 14. Now you're not going to do 15 or 13 at first. So you're going to work with 14, 16, 17, 18, and 19 because those numbers, you know, the 4, the 6, the 7, that's in the name. It's a lot easier. When you get to 13 and 15, remember we have the third, which works, you know, if you know what's third, it's the number 3 spot. What's fifth, it's the number 5 spot. So we will get to those, but we're going to do the other numbers first just because they're easier, because their names are familiar. Even if your children know the names, the regular names, zoom through this lesson just to make sure they're understanding exactly what the name represents. And if you notice, one of the activities, they're going to make a booklet. They're going to make their own little booklet of these numbers from 11 through 19. Now today, like I said, they're not doing 11 and 12, so they're going to start with 13. This booklet you can do if your children are gung-ho and they're enjoying themselves, you let them finish it out today. If not, just consider you have this whole week. And so have them do a few numbers every week. So by the end of the week, they're done. It doesn't feel so overwhelming. Lesson 82, regular names for 11 and 12. So 11 and 12 have an interesting story how we get these names. And again, their names are also flip-flopped. And you'll see it when you're reading through how we get 11, how we get 12. And remember, back in the day, they used to pronounce 2 as twu. They had that emphasis. We don't do that anymore. And again, this lesson is just going to be focused on working with those teen numbers. And you see the warm-up, you're going to do other things in the warm-up, but the lesson itself is going to be really focused on understanding what those teen numbers mean, how to represent them on the abacus, on your place value cards, and you have time to work on that little booklet that they're making. The game is Can You Find? It's a game you guys have been playing. You're just going to play it today using the regular names. Lesson 83, adding 1 to double-digit numbers. This is one of those activities that you're going to think is really easy, and you're going to be really tempted to tell your children that this is easy, but don't. You don't know. It may not be easy for your children. I know my granddaughter, who's 11, had a little bit of struggle with this herself. So, resist. Just talk about the lesson, let them have room to ask questions and struggle through if they need to. Encourage them, walk through it with them. And I know it sounds like it's going to be, wow, what is this? But it's just you're adding 1 to a number. That's it. But for some kids, it takes them a little time to process through that. They don't realize that counting is adding 1 to a number, or you count by 2s, or you count by 3s, whichever number you want to count by, but just regular everyday counting. Like, how many cows do you see? Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You're really just adding 1 to the previous number. That's all it is. But we don't realize that sometimes, and your children aren't going to realize that. So this activity is going to help them to see that. On the section of adding 1 on the abacus, that's where you're going to use your dry erase board. Your children can write their equation after they enter it on the abacus. Again, it's just reinforcing that concept. And then you get to use the math balance. I don't know about y'all. I just love the math balance. I just think it's so fun. The kids, for the most part, I think that they think it's fun, but I have heard from a couple people whose children really struggle with the math balance. So work with your children. If you have one of those children that struggles with the math balance, walk it through with them. Don't do it yourself, but lead them, direct them, ask questions. Don't just tell them what they need to do. help them learn how to process through so they can hopefully, really start to understand that concept. The illustrations in the book, I think, are really good. I don't see any reason for me to have to pull out the abacus to show you this, but I'll just walk through it with you to make sure. The top figure, it's showing putting 13 on the abacus. You hang it, weight on the 10, one on the 3. Then you're going to put one more on that side. You're going to put it on 1. And then on the other side, they're going to have 2 weights. Have them put one weight on the 10, and then they have to use that second weight to get it to balance. Some children will know quickly that it's going to be put on the 4. Other children are going to have to play around and probably put a weight on every single number on that side before they get it to balance. But once it balances, then talk to them. Why does it balance? Help them see that 3 and 1 make 4, and 10 and 4 make 14. You'll continue this using double digits. So for example, you're going to put 28 on the left side of the balance. You're just going to hang 2 pegs on 10 to make 20, or 2 10s, and then one on the 8. And then you'll put another one on 1. And then again, you go to the other side, tell them to go ahead and put 2 weights on the 10, then use that third weight to figure out what they need to do to get it to balance. And then with their worksheet, if they need to use the manipulatives, let them use it. They may want to use their abacus. They may want to use the math balance. They may not need to use anything. But if they do, let them use it. Last lesson for this week, lesson 84, 1 plus a number. So the first activity is just entering numbers on the abacus, but you're not just going to say a number, you're going to attach another word behind it. Here's animal words, and then they're just single digit, and then ask, were these pretty simple? If they say yes, then move on to the next section. If they said no, then maybe practice with a few more numbers. You also can have the child ask you to enter a single digit number on the abacus. Kind of helps to vary that up, especially with a child who struggles with this concept. The next activity is 1 plus a number on the abacus. If you look to the right for the teacher's notes, it's letting you know that you're going to be working with the commutative property. But we're not going to use that term with the children. It's more important that they understand the concept first before they learn what that word means. This activity is having you draw the part whole circle set on the dry erase board. But if you have copies and you have them in page protectors of the part whole circle set, use those. I know I keep telling you this. I just think it's so much easier. They're going to enter, and you'll see on this example how they're learning how 1 plus 5 equals 6 and 5 plus 1 equals 6. They're going to learn this through some story problems. And then at the bottom, you have 2 worksheets. You do not give both worksheets to your child. You just pick one of them to give. And on the right side for the teacher, it does say that if you have a child who's not confident with their 10s and 1s, give them worksheet 1. Otherwise, give your child worksheet 2. So you determine which one would be best for your child. All right, we're done. We made it through another week of overview lessons. I hope you have a good week. Remember about the phrase, this is so easy. Try not to use it. Allow your child to have the freedom and know it's okay to struggle. It's okay to ask questions. Remember, they really pick up from the mood of the teacher, and especially with mom being the teacher. I have some children that were a little bit more sensitive to me being their teacher than my other children, so I had to be really, really careful with that. Remember, if you have any questions or comments, you can contact us at the information on the screen. I hope your children enjoy making their little booklet for the teen numbers. If they'd like to share their work, remember you can send that to us with permission to post on our Facebook page or on our website. We have a place on our website for children's work. So if you would like to do that, if your child would like to do that, go ahead and send it. You can send it to info@rightstartmath.com, which is also the same place you could send emails or questions or comments. Again, you could also contact me directly at debbie@rightstartmath.com. Join me next week as we go over lessons 85 to 88. Until then.